In episode 1, Kendall Roy wants to buy a company to add to his family's news and entertainment empire, Waystar Royco. He's having a difficult time sealing the deal, and when his father, the current CEO, calls him to find out how negotiations are going, you can tell that his father, Logan, is losing faith in Kendall to get this deal done. Logan comes round to the office and gets Kendall to sign something. He says it's nothing, it's housekeeping. Kendall, who's quite caught up in this deal and probably doesn't want to show that he mistrusts his dad, signs the documents without looking at them too closely. Today also just happens to be Logan's birthday, and the family is gathered for a lunch, and this is where Logan announces to his adult children that he's not only adding Marcia to the family trust, but she'll take over a seat when he dies. This effectively gives her 2 votes, which doesn't go over well with the kids. Then he announces that he has decided to stay on as CEO and chairman of Waystar Royco, when in fact, the board was meant to meet that afternoon to discuss him handing the reins over to Kendall. So yeah, the heir apparent can't get his big promotion yet. Because they're obscenely wealthy, the family travels to a game of baseball by helicopter. Here, a lot of behind-the-back deals are made. Ronan wants to be COO, which means that Frank, who has been at the company for 30 years, would have to be stripped of any power that would allow him to veto Ronan's decisions. Well, that's what Roman wants anyway. Kendall calls the press and plants an anonymous story that the family is concerned about Logan's mental well-being. Logan, meanwhile, tells Frank that he'll have to take on lighter duties, kind of a demotion, and Shiv and Ronan end up telling their dad they won't sign the paperwork that gives Marcia the double vote. And while they're telling him this, he ends up suffering a brain hemorrhage. Logan is in the hospital, and this is where episode 2 takes place with Marcia and all the kids there. Members of the nominating committee board, headed up by Jerry, come to the hospital to arrange things just in case Logan dies, because they'll need to make sure that the stock doesn't crash. Shiv and Ronan say no to Kendall and Frank taking the reins temporarily. Frank was also fired after all, even though he was one of Logan's most trusted advisors. Shiv and Ronan even asked Jerry if she'd like to take on the CEO role, but she declines. Tom somehow decides that this is a perfect time to ask Shiv to marry him. The timing isn't great, but she does say that she'll marry him when the time is right. Cousin Greg is around running errands and being awkward. After a lot of infighting, the kids agree to have Kendall on as CEO, and they announce this to the nominating committee, who agree, pending board approval. Before Kendall can even adjust to finally getting what he's always wanted, Jerry tells him that the company has a $3 billion debt problem. In 1985, Logan needed cash to expand the franchise into theme parks, and he got a loan and added it to the company's already existing debt. The problem now is that it's secured against Waystar stock, and when the stock hits 130, repayment of the loan could be pursued, which would destroy them. And at the end of the episode, Logan wakes up. In episode 3, Kendall and Jerry are looking at the stock market graphs, and she reassures him that it'll stabilize, so things aren't great. Kendall is trying to reassure the bank that they'll repay their $3.2 billion loan, but he wants to renegotiate the terms if the stock drops. The bank isn't budging, and yeah, that negotiation is unsuccessful. The bill is coming due pretty soon. Kendall also chairs his first meeting as company CEO, and it's about as cringy as you can expect, but he tries. Stewie asks if he can come in and take the whole thing off their hands, and he and Kendall get to talking. Kendall asks Stewie for $4 billion. They basically hash out their agreement informally, but this seems to be happening. Kendall will have the money. He goes on a dinner date with his ex-wife Brava to celebrate, and he looks kind of wired. The situation with his ex is complicated. They're in the midst of a divorce. Kendall isn't over her, and he wants to make the marriage work again, but Brava has kind of moved on. They're still hooking up though. Shiv asks a friend and ex, Daniel, to dig up some dirt on Marcia, and Roman finally tells Kendall that the stock has gone below 130. All the kids come around to the house, but Marcia has been barring them on their previous visits, telling them that Logan is resting. Eventually, Shiv pushes past Marcia, and she sees Logan, who is inappropriate with her, and she's traumatized, but she manages to keep it together and she leaves in a hurry. Logan also summons Kendall to the house. Kendall tells Logan that the stock tanked, but that he's found a private equity solution. He tells Logan that they're in good shape. Logan calls him an idiot. At the end of the episode, Cousin Greg is walking in the park when he spots Stewie being cozy with the competition. In episode 4, Logan comes back to the office. He has apologized to Frank as well, and he's asked Frank to mentor Ronan. Bill, who has just retired, hands over some bombshell documents to Tom. Basically, there has been a cover-up. On the company's cruise liners, there has been a culture of exploitation of workers, bribing authorities to cover the company in the event of crimes, etc., etc. He shares this with cousin Greg, and Tom has the intention of coming out with it, putting out a press conference and saying that the company is going to start an investigation, but Jerry gets wind of this and shuts it down. Stewie comes into the office and he doesn't seem confident that Kendall is actually in charge, and with Logan there, yeah, that kind of throws Kendall off his game. Logan is at his most loathsome because he needs people quite a bit, and I think the fact that he needs that help makes him all the more terrible to everybody around him. He also relieves himself on Kendall's office floor. Now, he could have been confused, he is still in recovery after all, but I think he was just being Logan and he was marking his territory, I guess. At the end of the episode, at the annual gala hosted by the family, Kendall was meant to give a speech, and in it he was going to announce Logan's retirement. Logan decides he's going to give the speech instead, and he announces that he's officially back full-time and he's better than ever. Kendall is crushed. In episode 5, cousin Greg shows up to his grandpa Ewan's house, Logan's brother. There is some kind of cold war between Logan and his brother, but Ewan has been invited to Thanksgiving, so cousin Greg is tasked with driving him from Canada because Ewan doesn't like to fly. By the way, Ewan has a seat on the board at Waystar, even though he despises the whole thing. Kendall and Frank start discussing a vote of no confidence in Logan, obviously because Kendall doesn't think that Logan is well, also because Kendall wants the CEO position. Connor asks his girlfriend Willa if they can be exclusive, and she agrees. He's been paying her for the girlfriend experience, and I'm not sure if she was seeing other clients before, but yeah, she's going to be around full time now. At the Thanksgiving dinner, Ewan and Logan end up having an explosive fight, and Ewan leaves. Apparently Marsha invited him there under false pretenses, saying that Logan wanted to apologize. Cousin Greg does not destroy all of the documents as instructed, he makes copies, so now he has hard evidence of the company's dirty cover-ups. Kendall tells Ewan about the vote of no confidence happening at the board meeting, but Ewan tells Kendall that Logan may be many things, but he's still his brother. Yikes, that appears to be a miscalculation by Kendall, I think. Jerry senses a vibe between Kendall and Ewan and asks what the deal was, and Kendall tries to brush it off, but Jerry, who knows everything, says that she's spoken to Frank and she's seen all she needs to see, she's with them. In episode 6, Kendall tells Stewie that he's putting up a vote of no confidence. Bless Kendall for thinking that he has friends in this business. Frank, Jerry, Roman, and Kendall meet to discuss how many yays they would have for the vote and how likely their desired outcome is. Shiv meets with her ex Daniel, there's some heavy flirting, they have dinner, and it appears as though she spent the night. I can't be sure if anything really happened though, because they're both being kind of coy. Ewan has dinner with cousin Greg, and I just realized this far into the recording I can call him Greg. Anyway, Ewan tells him about the vote of no confidence, which he finds really selfish of Kendall. He warns Greg to stay out of the nest of vipers that is that family. Still though, he's going to be present at the meeting. Kendall is summoned to the house to have dinner with Logan, and it's possible that Logan has caught wind of the upcoming vote. Logan speaks in riddles though, not giving away whether he knows or not. He's playing Kendall. On the morning of the vote, Kendall takes a helicopter to Long Island to talk one of the board members into voting with him. But as he's about to fly back into the city, the airspace is blocked, he gets stuck in traffic when he takes a car, and he doesn't make it to the meeting. He eventually does everything over the phone. Stewie abstains from voting, and Ewan votes against Kendall, which I suppose we could have seen that coming. So Logan was actually supposed to leave the room, but he didn't, so this could have influenced a lot of those votes. Roman votes against Kendall as well, and it's a bloodbath. And all the nays get promptly fired. At the end of the episode, when Logan gets a call from the president, he's sitting comfortably in his office and his position as CEO is secure, and Kendall is in exile. In episode 7, Kendall has filed a lawsuit against Logan, and people are throwing urine at Logan out on the street. Things aren't great. People in general hate him and Waystar the way most of us dislike the Murdochs. So the team convinces Logan that it's best to show a united front. They'll be going for family therapy. Kendall is kind of hiding out, licking his wounds. Everyone's suspicious that he's relapsed, and there have been rumors of him roaming the streets looking high. Anyway, the family makes it to New Mexico to have their therapy session in luxury. Shiv and Daniel hook up in the car. Kendall was invited to the family therapy. He declines, but he goes to a bar in New Mexico, and we see him break his sobriety for the first time on the screen. And he ends up at a house with a group of users, and not only does he use again, he obviously likes it, and basically basically offers to sponsor all of the party favors for the group. This spiral is starting. Roman comes to get Kendall, and Kendall has a big confrontation at the house with Logan, and the therapy session is a bust anyway. Everybody basically goes their own way. At the end of the episode, there is a scene where Logan is getting out of the pool and we see marks on his back. Is it from previous abuse? Does he self-flagellate? I mean, I doubt that. I have watched the show before, but I don't remember if this is ever addressed. Anyway, that's the end of episode 7. In episode 8, Greg asks Logan if he can move on to the next level, out of parks and working with Tom and into digital. Logan says that if he looks out for Kendall, especially at Tom's upcoming bachelor party, then sure. Roman is tasked with trying to buy the TV stations owned by Sandy Furness, Logan's arch enemy, basically. Shiv is now working for a politician who hates Logan and intends to go up against him. Logan obviously sees this as a betrayal and tries to get Shiv to come over to work at Waystar because she has potential. Shiv believes her father is trying to manipulate her because the optics of her working for the politician are pretty bad. Shiv and Daniel are also having a full-on affair at this point. It's Tom's bachelor party and the brothers take him to some underground party by the train tracks. It's an exclusive, eyes wide shut kind of party. At the party, Stewie offers Kendall $500 million for his share in Waystar. Turns out, Sandy has a shell company attached to Stewie's private equity fund, so basically, Sandy is already kind of in at Waystar because he and Stewie are a package deal. Kendall decides to partner with Sandy with the intention of taking over Waystar and stripping it for parts. He's basically out for revenge. Roman also tries to make a deal with Sandy, but Sandy is just playing him. In episode 9, it's Shiv's wedding, so we're in England. Back in the States, Logan is pretty irritable. He and Marsha had decided that Logan wouldn't be attending Shiv's wedding, but he actually wants her to ask him to be there because he's not going to apologize and ask to go again. He needs an excuse to the public, though, for why he isn't attending his daughter's wedding. So in the end, he decides to go because he doesn't think there's any other option. Tom tells Shiv that he senses vibes between her and Nate. He wants to know if this is real. This is a question that we all have, to be honest. She says that it's real and kind of tries to put his mind at ease, but I think Tom knows. Then he tells her about the abuse cover-ups on the company's cruise liners. Shiv then hints that she knows about it to her father and to Jerry, saying that their news station needs to call off the attacks on her presidential candidate. By the way, later on in the episode, Logan and Gil agree to a reluctant truce. So obviously Logan is at the wedding and he jokes about Kendall needing a reference for his resume. Logan does want him back in the fold, but it's more so that he can control him. Kendall still can cause some problems for Logan, and that's inconvenient, so it's better to have him in. Stewie and Sandy tell Kendall that they have to do the takeover tomorrow to avoid a potential leak. This is bringing up the timeline several weeks, by the way. They need to catch Logan off guard. Greg tells Tom that he thinks that Shiv might be cheating. You see, Greg saw Nate and Shiv having a moment earlier, but Tom doesn't want to hear it, and he kind of physically attacks Greg. By the end of the episode, we see Kendall preparing for his takeover attack. It's happening, and we have one episode to go this season. In episode 10, the final episode of season 1, Kendall, who has been using and is full on in his relapse, but still functional, is going through with this takeover. He makes an offer to his father to buy Waystar shares. Kendall kind of bungles it a bit because Logan is scary as heck, but this does scare Logan because he realizes that he's not in a great position. There's a satellite launch happening in Japan and Roman is in charge of it. That ends up being a major disaster. The rocket explodes before it even takes off. Roman did push to accelerate the launch though, and he tells Jerry that since she's corporate counsel, she needs to protect him. It turns out though that there are no casualties, so everything's fine, I guess. The three siblings confront Kendall about the takeover. Logan joins the discussion as well, but Kendall stands his ground. Later, when Kendall is on a walkabout, Greg points him to some guy smoking at the back of the wedding party, and he mentions that he has made copies of the evidence of the cruise line cover-up. Shiv admits to Tom that she cheated, and she tells him that she's not a good fit for monogamous marriage. He points out that she might have mentioned that before they got married. She wants a different relationship with him, she says, and she tries to get him excited about it. It's so uncomfortable to watch this scene because she's crying and professing her love for him, but it feels deeply emotionally manipulative. Kendall asks the poor cater waiter who was earlier verbally attacked by Logan if he knows of a connection for some more party favors. He decides to drive them to the waiter's contact so that he can get what he needs. Kendall ends up driving because the guy is high, even though Kendall is not used to driving. He's driven everywhere. A deer appears in the middle of the road and Kendall swerves into a lake. He manages to swim out, but the car obviously sinks with the guy in it. Kendall decides to run from the scene. He gets back to the wedding party, cleans himself up, and has some fun with his family, and until the next morning it looks as though he has the intention of just keeping quiet about it. Logan then summons Kendall and tells him about the cater waiter. He also tells him that his guys found a keycard to Kendall's room near the scene. They're going to be reframing this as a robbery gone wrong. Logan tells Kendall to get on his plane and go home. He'll take care of it all, basically. This will just be a minor unfortunate detail in his life. He also tells Kendall, obviously, because there are strings attached, to pull out of the takeover. And then we see it. Kendall surrendering to the cold embrace of Roy, money and power. And that's the end of season 1. Season 2, episode 1. So Kendall needs to give a public statement about his intention to back off the takeover. He's a bit of a puppet now, but yeah, the bill comes due on a potential manslaughter cover-up by Daddy. Logan summons Kendall and wants all of the details about the takeover, what Stewie and Sandy's strategy was, and Kendall reveals everything. So now the big question is Logan going to sell? His counsel advises him to sell to Sandy. The family meets at another one of their mansions, and Logan invites the family to speak freely about what to do. Should they sell? If they do, they could walk away with $10 billion. Colin, by the way, tells Kendall that they expect a ruling of death by misadventure for the accident, so he's pretty much in the clear. Logan asks Shiv to come in as an executive. She admits that she wants it and that she can do it. She asks him if it's real and, oh Shiv. Logan finally decides against selling and he has his sights set on being the #1 media conglomerate in the world. Stewie, in the end, wants to know how Logan got Kendall to change sides. Kendall is sent out to do some negotiations so that this doesn't have to be a bloodbath, but Sandy and Stewie don't want to step down. In episode 2, Tom is at ATN now, the news network. Greg is feeling iffy about it because he says it goes against his principles, but he's there as well. Tom isn't really welcome and he starts throwing his weight around as son-in-law. Gil offers Shiv the chief of staff position for when he becomes president, but since she's taking on some responsibilities at Waystar and she's hoping for the executive role, she stalls with Gil. She finally talks to Logan about her future at Waystar and he tells her that she needs to get into the management training program for what sounds like a couple of years and then they'll see. It looks like Logan is basically stalling as well. Poor Kendall. Logan decides to go with Roman's suggestion to shut down Lawrence's company. The employees are just about to unionize as well, so yeah, Logan wants to get rid of them. Kendall tries to convince Logan not to, but he's tasked with getting rid of the company. Kendall talks to Lawrence and reassures him that Logan can be persuaded not to get rid of them. So yeah, it looks like Kendall is going rogue. This turns out to just be a play though. He was just stalling for time. He goes back to Lawrence's company and promptly fires everybody. Logan gives him a figurative pat on the head, and now Kendall gets to share an office with Logan. There's a weird babysitting element to this as Kendall takes a seat at a desk in his father's office. By the way, in the last episode, Shiv decided to quit working for Gil, so she's kind of in limbo because not everybody is allowed to know yet that Logan has said he's bringing her into Waystar. There's a lot of corporate panic as usual, and in this episode, it's because Logan wants to buy the media company PGM, owned by the Pierce family. This acquisition would cost $20 billion, and Jerry and the rest of council, I guess, are having doubts as to whether this is a good idea. Shiv thinks that it's a bad idea because they'll basically be owning all of news, which is pretty dodgy in a so-called democracy. They're at another mansion this week, somewhere in Europe, for a hunting trip. It's obscene. Everyone is terrified. Jerry approaches Tom about talking to Logan about his PS acquisition. She thinks it's a bad move. Shiv is tasked with staying behind and putting out a Connor-related fire. She ends up sleeping with somebody that she met at a bar. I don't know if she and Tom explicitly agreed to open the relationship, and when she mentions it to him later, he looks a bit taken aback and hurt. She is being open about it though, I guess. Meanwhile, Logan is convinced that someone in their midst is a traitor. Snakes in a basket, I think he called it. And he basically has everybody trapped in the dining room and tries to smoke out the culprit. He even makes them put their phones on the table and this Boar on the floor game begins. It devolves into the kind of nightmarish madness that you have to see for yourself. The mole ends up being someone who passed away the previous night. At the end of the episode, Logan calls Shiv and says that it's time to bring her in. So in a previous episode, Jerry had advised Ronan that in order to get respect from his father, he's going to have to learn the ropes, go to management training, so they kind of bond over that. He takes her advice, and in episode 4, he goes to spend the day with the trainees at one of the parks. Shiv comes into Waystar for the day to observe. It's obviously mildly suspicious because she didn't have much interest in the day-to-day decisions and running of the company before. Kendall is having a shoplifting issue, bout of kleptomania. He steals sweets and lighter fluid from corner shops. Jerry and her team have been dealing with it though. I'm guessing they've just paid off all the corner shops to let Kendall go through with his thing. It's a good thing that Kendall never drives anywhere on his own, so there's always someone with him there to clean up after him, I guess. Rhea eventually comes in to see Logan. She's a representative for the Pierce family. She tells Logan that the answer is no. The Pierce family aren't selling PGM. Then an alarm goes off. A possible shooter is on the premises and everybody has to go into panic rooms. Tom is obviously put off because he has to be in the employee panic room and not the one that Logan, Shiv, and the close family are in. Greg also tells Tom that he'd like to go and work somewhere else. He doesn't want to work for ATN. He says that he uses the unfortunate phrase that they could have a business open relationship. And because of his marriage, Tom gets a bit triggered and he has a meltdown. Kendall and Logan have Rhea in the panic room and are offering $24 billion at one point for PGM. Shiv tries to get involved in the process, but Logan shuts her out kind of rudely. Later, Logan thanks Kendall and acknowledges a job well done, which is hurtful to Shiv. Even with all of his problems and being a bit of a liability at the moment, Logan still seems to be paying more attention to him, which threatens her position. Roman has been having issues being sexually attracted to his girlfriend. He calls Jerry and I don't know how to characterize what's happening here. Jerry is pretty dominant and rude to Ronan, and that's how he gets off, basically. Logan or his people have really been watching over Kendall, so someone knows that he had always gone up to the roof to look out over the city. It was just a thing that he did from time to time to decompress, I guess. I think he was more experiencing those call of the void moments than contemplating taking his own life, but he has been looking extremely depressed lately, so I could be wrong. Anyway, this time, at the end of the episode, when he goes up to the roof, we see that there is now plexiglass covering the ledge. It's episode 5, and the Pierces are enticed by the $24 billion, but they're worried about the integrity of the Roys and their news station. But everybody gets their orders to make this thing work. The Roys all go to meet the Pierce family, headed up by the matriarch Nan Pierce. The Pierce family is, to oversimplify it, a bit of a posh version of the Roys. And yeah, the Roys are given their marching orders by Logan to butter up the Pierces in a kind of divide and conquer. Kendall connects with one of the Pierces who is also in recovery, and they end up using that evening, and Kendall opens up to her. Tom, as head of news, chokes. When Nan asks who Logan is handing the keys of the kingdom to, he gets cagey and Logan won't say. Eventually, surprising everybody, Shiv says that it's her. Roman is having some issues again, or more like his preferences don't align with his girlfriend's. He wants her to act as though she's not consenting or even alive. It weirds her out, and he goes over to Jerry. She scolds him, locks him in a bathroom, and carries on scolding him. And yeah, this is a thing now. The main family members meet after breakfast. Logan ups the offer to $25 billion, and the Pierces give their terms. They'd like to retain some board seats. Nan does not want Tom to be head of news. They also want the sale and Shiv as CEO to be announced at the same time. It also turns out, I think, that the lady that Kendall was partying with might have told Nan that Kendall is a ticking time bomb and not a safe bet. Logan says no, he'll announce Shiv when he wants to. So they're at kind of an impasse now, even though the family does celebrate at the end of the episode. In this episode, everyone is at a Davos type of conference event for rich people, and the corporate panic continues. New York Magazine is working on a substantial piece about the Waystar cruises, but the family doesn't know exactly what is coming out, so they're exploring their options on how to kill the story or get out in front of it. Basically, they want to sue, bankrupt, and scare a bunch of people. It doesn't work, and the magazine doesn't cooperate. They actually end up publishing the story sooner. Logan tells Rhea that if the Pierce family doesn't sign tomorrow, they'll walk, but Rhea calls his bluff. He also warns Marsha that something big is about to come out regarding the cruises, and he wants to make sure that she's with him. She says she's with him, she knows who he is, So the story comes out, and it's kind of bad. They found a woman who worked on the cruises 20 years ago, and she's talking because she's the only one who didn't sign an NDA. There's a lot of innuendo, but the story doesn't have many facts. It's bad optics though. Shiv Roy and Roman all sit on a panel and address it as best they can, but it's pretty tense. After all of this, Nan not only has cold feet, she says it's over. Logan has such a tantrum, it's surprising that he doesn't have another medical incident. Nan also fires Rhea. In episode 7, Stewie and Sandy have started this ad campaign to get shareholders to lose confidence in Logan, saying that he's failing Waystar. The family is tasked with going to London and convincing their mother, Caroline, to stick with them and sell them her shares because she has 3% voting stock. Logan offers 10 million but is prepared to go up to 50. The last time Kendall was there though, he had that accident, so he's not thrilled about going. Rhea and Logan are also getting quite cozy and it looks like the beginnings of a possible affair. Logan admits to Rhea that he's not sure about who should be CEO. Shiv is talented and smart, but he just doesn't know. The London cater-waiter accident story comes back to haunt them a bit. It comes out that Logan bullied him at the wedding party, but they still aren't legally liable. Logan decides to go and talk to the victim's family, and he asks Kendall to go with him. This is extremely cruel, but necessary. It was an accident. Anybody could have swerved from the deer and ended up in the lake, but Kendall had been using that night, and he agreed to the cover-up, so he is responsible. I guess it's reassuring to see that he's really struggling with this, but oh man, it's grim. By the way, the sale of Caroline's stock isn't really settled. She has her own counter offers and she kind of abandons the kids before they get a chance to talk to her about anything the next morning. At the end of the episode, Shiv asks Logan if it's still her and he doesn't think that she's serious. Everyone has caught wind that she's entertaining an offer from the Pierces, and it was Rhea who actually talked Shiv into doing that to push Logan to make a decision. It's all up in the air by the end of episode 7. In episode 8, the family is in Scotland where a journalism school is being named after Logan. It's literally called the Logan Roy School of Journalism. There's also a tribute gala put on in Logan's honor to honor his life's work. The adult kids are concerned about Rhea. Shiv is nervous that Rhea has ulterior motives, that she might strip the company for parts, but Logan has invited her into the fold. Marsha is also wary of Rhea and, in her very elegant French and terrifying way, kind of corners Rhea and asks her if she's been tested for STIs. She deserves to know because she and Logan do sleep together. An accountant who has information about the cruise line payouts is spooked after the New York Magazine story and is thinking about talking. The family offer him millions, but he doesn't flinch. Something is coming out and the Roys are concerned that he has a backer, one of their enemies, which obviously doesn't narrow it down. Ewan comes to the tribute and he wants Greg to stop working for Waystar. If not, he'll consider removing Greg from his will and Greg stands to lose $250 million. Greg asks Logan for some advice and also tells him about his intention to quit, and Logan calls Ewan's bluff. He also says that he likes Greg and that he should make his own decision in the end. Kendall puts on a rap performance honoring his dad, and I know we're meant to all find this really cringe, but shame, he's trying, it's not that bad. At the end of the episode, Logan announces Rhea as CEO. In episode 9, the Whistleblower comes out with a story and it's pretty damning. They decide to have Bill, who is recently retired, take the fall and they'll try to discredit the Whistleblower's story. This isn't just going to blow over though. Gil, Shiv's ex-boss, wants to call for hearings in Washington. Some people are going to have to testify before Congress about the cover-up. It goes terribly. Tom takes the stand and crumbles. He realizes that he's kind of the patsy in this. Logan testifies next, says that every victim will be compensated and perpetrators punished. They will investigate, but Logan isn't great. He seems kind of mumbly. But Kendall is pretty good on the stand and calls out Gil for his personal bias against the family. Shiv visits the victim and another potential whistleblower and talks her into cooperating, assures her that they'll find the people who are responsible for the abuse, but of course they'll do it the Roy way. This victim ends up dropping out of testifying. Rhea quits. She's had enough of this. And at the end of the episode, Logan tells Shiv that even though Kendall was great and the hearing went their way, it's not enough. It's time for a blood sacrifice. In the final episode of season 2, after the hearings, the family goes on a mini break on their mega yacht. Connor asks Logan for $100 million and his father says yes if he drops his pretty much dead on arrival presidential campaign. By the way, Marsha isn't on the yacht. She did say to Logan that by naming Rhea as CEO without telling her, he broke something. There was also the suspicion of the affair, but it felt like not telling her about the business move was what really got to her. Logan and Kendall meet with Stewie and try to get him to back down, but Stewie says no because he and Sandy are actually persuading shareholders that they will be able to make them more money. Tom admits to Shiv that he's pretty unhappy with her. So the blood sacrifice has to happen, and I guess to her credit, Shiv pleads with her father that it not be Tom. Tom isn't really relevant enough in this family or in the business to take the fall though. Logan tells Kendall that he's the one. They'll put out a press conference and he'll be the face of this and take the fall. They'll say he knew everything and directed the cover-up. Kendall asks his father if he ever thought that he could do it. Run Waystar, I guess. And Logan tells Kendall he doesn't know. Kendall just isn't a killer. Kendall gets up there and basically burns it all to the ground. He tells the world that Logan knew everything and he has documentation supporting that claim. In the end, Logan has a smirk, so he's ready for this. And that is the end of Succession Season 1 and 2. Thank you for watching.